All right, we are live. Welcome to this first of three Hangouts to celebrate World Usability Day.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I'm Susie Gronseth. I'm coming to you live from Alabama.
Mhm.
I work for the University of Houston, and I've been living in the Middle East the last few years. And so I'll talk about my experiences from those places.
I'm
And I'll
Betsy
let you guys
Dalton.
introduce yourselves.
Okay, great. My name is Betsy Dalton. I am coming to you from Rhode Island, from the Tech Access Center, where I work as a consultant. And I've been involved with assistive technology for probably 35 years, I guess, and have traveled uh, to many other countries and have different experiences relating to disability and usability. So I'll be talking about some of those.
And I'm Kendra Grant, and I am the president of the Inclusive Learning Network, and I'm coming from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I also work with a visual coding company, which is far away from the land of accessibility, but another interest of mine. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Ontario, Canada, because we don't have a federal education system, so every single province is different. But talk a little bit because of the Pan Am and the Para Pan Am Games we had in August this year. We have a lot of innovation happening around accessibility here in the province.
So, World Usability Day basically is a day of events that happen around the world, and it's observed on November 12th, although we'll have people joining us on November 13th. If you are in places like Australia and you're joining some of the ones that are later on this evening here in the States. But it is a day where we look at um, how we can, in a variety of professions, and we're coming from the education sector, but how we can ensure that services and products are easy and simple for all users. And, and we, in particular, from the Inclusive Learning Network, look at how can we make instructional experiences inclusive for all learners to reduce the barriers that might be inherent in some of the materials or the practices of those educational experiences. Would you guys like to add anything to that?
Um, Susie, that was a great description of World Usability Day. I think one of the things that I'd like to be sure we consider is around the world we have a wide variation of resources. We have a wide variation of access to technology, and I think that that's one of the things that World Usability Day is working to help us to move towards is um, first of all, understanding the perspectives of individuals around the world in terms of usability, and then finding a way to work together to raise, kind of like to raise the floor in terms of technology and the way that we use technology so that we can communicate effectively and so that individuals can have more comprehensive access to their communities and to be able to live more independent lives. So I've had some experiences. I'm hoping that my friend Judy McKenzie from South Africa will be joining us so that we can talk a little bit about our experiences together regarding inclusion and some of the needs that we found. Thank you.
And Kendra, maybe since this is going to be shared widely, this video will be shared widely, maybe talk about what the Inclusive Learning Network is and what we do to try to promote instructional experiences that are inclusive for all learners.
There we go. Sure. I mean, and you guys can jump in as well. I think that the Inclusive Learning Network's had a long history of looking at accessibility, universal design for learning, and advocacy. I think those for me are the highlights of really what we do. And what we try to do is support our members wherever they are in the spectrum of understanding student variability and how to create inclusive environments, inclusive classroom environments. So we've done a lot of things. We do a lot throughout the year, that events such as this to bring awareness to people. And we do a lot around webinars and resources. You did a wonderful book talk, I think it was in May of this year, and just giving opportunities for our members to be able to learn together. Betsy and I and Luis Perez, we do a course. So again, we're offering kind of long-term learning for our members, and so we offer a 1-month course, which we call a SOOC, which is a bit of a play on a MOOC, and allows people to have to actually experience learning in a universal designed environment, and what that means for them as learners, and being really reflective as practitioners. I think the other thing we do really well is kind of the K to 20 spectrum. So we don't just do kind of the elementary and high school, we also support people in the higher ed as well, and what that might look like for them at that level. We also do things like we're very active on social media, and we have a great newsletter that we were just talking about that just provides kind of the latest news for people. So really, it's all about giving people access to that information, and sometimes the Inclusive Learning Network, I think, flew under the radar a little bit. It was seen as an add-on, just like special education is sometimes seen as an add-on, as opposed to starting from the beginning and really talking about accessibility and inclusion from the beginning. So I think over the years that we've had, Betsy was our president, we've really raised the awareness level of us as a group, and how we actually impact all of the other groups at ISTE, and it kind of almost we should be leading a lot of those discussions. So I think I'm proud of all the work that we've done in that area as well. Is there anything else you guys might want to add to that?
Just one thing, and thank you, Kendra. The reason that we're having these particular conversations is because last year, or a little bit before the conference last year, we started a new committee as part of our Inclusive Learning Network, which is our international committee, because we wanted to have a way to reach out to individuals around the world, and also to learn and bring in the ideas and influences from folks who live in different countries and different places around the world to our Inclusive Learning Network, so that we can do a better job of being responsive and also representing those perspectives. So it's been really fun. I have a great interest, and I have for many years, in being more internationally connected, and this is just one of the ways to do that. So I would like to ask you, Kendra, what would be the best way for people to connect with the Inclusive Learning Network if they don't know about it, or if this is the first time they've learned about it and they want to know more?
Actually, that's a great question. I think probably a couple of ways, and again, if you guys have any other suggestions, I would say you can go to the ISTE website and go under I believe it's the Professional Learning Networks, and just search for Inclusive Learning Network, and you'll find us. You can join that way. The other would be probably through either Twitter or the Facebook page. If you just go into Twitter and put in Inclusive LN, you'll get us that way, and you'll probably see one of our flyers or another way that you might be able to connect. Our website is www.inclusiveln.org. So you can also do that one as well. I don't know if we've got the ability to put into a chat box or not here. And that's the, let me see if I can do that. And on our website, you will be able to go in and join us that way. I think those are probably the easiest. I don't know if anybody has any other suggestions.
No, I think that's great. The website is good. Following on Twitter. We have other social media accounts, but we tend to link to those via Twitter, and you can certainly find us through the International Society for Technology and Education, ISTE.org website. We used to be called SETSIG, the Special Education Technology Special Interests Group, and recently all of the special interest groups out of ISTE have been moved into professional learning networks, and so now we're called the Inclusive Learning Network, ILN. So that's, you might have heard of SETSIG at some point. We're now ILN, but we're the same group, a lot of the same people, and we're one of the largest groups, professional learning groups in ISTE, which is a large organization. So that's a little bit of intro about us. Feel free to get in touch with us. We're also on social media, and we welcome the conversations about how we can use technology in innovative ways to support all learners. And I'm in higher ed, and so I am focused a lot on how I can use technology to support my students in undergraduate and graduate courses at the master's and doctoral level. And so when I think about how to use technology for individuals who have special learning needs, I think about ways that in my courses I might create transcripts of the video lectures that I do, either before or after I create them. Sometimes I'll create my videos and I will write the lecture first and then read it in the best natural voice that I can, and then I have that transcript that I can also link within my YouTube video and provide within my course site, because I have a lot of students who speak English as a second language or who have attention issues or retention issues, memory issues, and they refer back to that transcript. It's also great to have a transcript to do keyword searches when you want to find out what was that concept that she was talking about or that example, and you don't have to watch the whole video again. You can just search by a keyword. Or if I am doing a selfie kind of video, I might do the video and then transcribe it afterwards, and then I have that transcript again too. So so those are just a couple of things that I try to do in my courses and at the higher education level, and I try to model these strategies for my students so that they would then think about those kinds of issues when they're doing videos for their learners. That's just a couple of ideas from my section, and I have students all over the world. It's not unusual for me to have students from the Middle East, from Turkey, and I teach in MOOCs too, massive open online courses where we'll have 20,000 students from all over the world. So lots of students who are speaking English as an additional language. And so transcripts are great to provide additional support for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. We also, in this month's newsletter, we have a little bit on how to close captions. So that's timely, Susie. And I think YouTube does a great job of that. And anytime I think you can write your script before, you can't always do that, but anytime you can write a script before and maybe have a teleprompter to help you, then it makes it a lot easier to do the transcripts, especially if it's a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But YouTube is a really great way to do that quickly. So if you, I put in the link to our newsletter, and again, you can also find that at our Twitter account, and it has a little video that I put together on how to quickly do transcripts.
Mm-hmm. So, Susie, I have a question for you in terms of going the other direction when you were talking about when you have the video and then you produce the transcript. Is there a way to automatically do that so that people can kind of get the transcript from the video, or do you have to, type it all out yourself?
The service through YouTube does provide the captions. You can use that and then go through and make edits as you need to. I've also had success with Dragon Naturally Speaking,
Mm-hmm.
listening after you've trained it with your own voice and then listening to a video that you've done. It can pick it up and provide you the transcript, and then you can tweak it that way. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very fast typer though. I can pretty much type as I'm listening, and so it's really not that difficult for me to type something as I'm rewatching it again. It's almost faster for me to start from scratch than to have to go line by line and edit.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just work with what works for you, but providing that transcript helps the students who need the extra support, but it also is a great thing for me as an instructor because I can pull content from that transcript and use it to write an introduction to the lesson, to write a message, an email, an announcement. I have the content right there to write quiz questions. So it records that information in a written format that I can reuse in different ways. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a good support for me too.
Mm-hmm. And I think that really gets to kind of the power of having information in a digital format. And there are a number of different things that relate to usability around that concept. It actually is an idea that when I'm speaking with people, wherever I might be presenting or talking, I say, if you're going to do one thing, to extend the accessibility of your information, be sure that you have it available in digital form, because then it can be accessed using various devices, it can be transformed, it can be enlarged, it can be read. There's so many different things. So just are very, very positive and very interesting ideas. But just having the information available in digital form really expands the potential for broader usability. And I think that that's great. So I'm learning from you.
And I also want to say hi to Cindy Anderson who's joining us. I didn't want to skip. You want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what what you do with the Inclusive Learning Network.
I'm Cindy Anderson. I'm an associate professor at Roosevelt University. And I apologize that I came on late, but Google Hangouts was not being very usable for me this morning. So I am the leader of the International Committee, and that's my role on the Inclusive Learning Network board. And I'm thrilled that we can be here. I'm hoping I sent the link away to the professor from Egypt who wanted to join us during this hour, but I don't know if she's, I didn't, we'll have to see if she can join us. I saw her on the chat room as I was trying to get in. Every time I tried to access this, it tried to set up a new Hangout. Usability for me has a special meaning. I've spent my morning, part of my morning, frankly, waiting for this to start, acting kind of as a consultant for people who have my particular disability. I have some genetic thing that affects my hands and feet, and it's called Dupuytren's contracture in the hands, and it's called Lederho's disease in the feet. And so I'm sitting here. I'm in Chicago. Chicago today is so windy that they had to close down the Skyway. So that affects how my hands and feet feel, and I'm sitting here with arthritis gloves on and some heating things in my shoes. So when you talk usability, assistive technology, in the last year and a half when this started, it's become very broad-based for me. And so I spent part of my morning acting as a consultant to other people, recommending that they purchase these gloves and these feet warmers. Now, were they meant for my disability? No. The gloves are made for people with arthritis, and the foot warmers are made for hunters and people like that who spend, skiers, people who spend their winter time out in the cold weather. For me, they're acting as a relief for the sensitivity, the aching that I get when the weather changes. So they're so usability for me has become very broad-based in the last year and a half. Um, Things that you don't think of as assistive technology are now proving to be assistive technology for me.
I used to teach a course for undergraduate special educators, future special educators, and we had a discussion during one of the sessions about the many things you could do with common items you might have, like a paper clip that could provide support to people who who need it in the tactile or motor, whatever. And so when you talk about the gloves and the foot warmers, it makes me think about how we use tools in a variety of ways that the designer may not have intended them to be for a particular person with a particular need, but we think innovatively and we find a way to use the tool or the resource so that we can meet a particular need for ourselves or for our students.
Mhm.
I'm wondering about, did you want us to share some of our, what we were going to talk a little bit about, the different places?
Sure. Sure. Do you want to pull up the PowerPoint that you have prepared?
I'll do that. I'll do it very quickly because I know we've only got about 20 minutes, so I can make the PowerPoint available as well. So I'll go into that. And just let me know that you can see the screen because I can only see the screen at this point.
You can see it very clearly.
Excellent. So I'm just going to go very quickly over some of the things that I think are kind of innovative that are happening in the Toronto or Ontario area. And again, I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of it accelerated because of our Pan Am and the Para-Pan Am games that we had this August. And so it was quite amazing to see when there is the will, how much change can happen. And so, again, one of the things that they did was they really were priding themselves on accessibility. And again, I won't go into everything here, but this is actually a link out to, and I'll just see whether looks like I'm going to come out into there. They actually talked about and had the athletes assess how accessible the city was. So they had all these athletes come out and they have a little article here about the accessibility levels, which was quite interesting to see. And it actually did quite well. This is an app that I think is really important. It comes from a graduate student at one of our colleges. And this was on Twitter this morning that I found, but I know I actually follow this. It's called Access Now. They're trying to crowdsource around the world accessible places. So it's a young person. She wants to go out to dinner. She wants to do all these things. And she created this app to make find places that are more accessible and that you can go and have fun without having to worry about whether you can actually get into that particular place. And Rick Hansen, who is also the Man in Motion, if people are familiar with him, I think he has something very similar as well. So it's that idea of bringing people together around the world and really saying, let's make sure these places are accessible. And so she was actually the person you saw in the article as well, kind of spearheading that during the games.
Is this focused on Canada or is it available worldwide?
This is it's worldwide, and I'll just quickly go into her site here. So yes, she wants it to be accessible all over the world. And I think they're starting to get some real traction. So they're kind of looking at how it works. They're starting to map, and I think they're the places that are pinned. So you can see it's starting to kind of build over time, and that's kind of their goal, is to crowdsource it. So yes, they definitely want it everywhere. That's kind of the goal. I think Rick Hansen's as well. He wants the same thing, and just have it spread from there. So I think it's a great idea. It's almost like when you do TripAdvisor, right? You know, I had a great trip. Here's what I did. Well, this is the same sort of thing where it crowdsources it. This is another one called IDAPT, and oops, sorry, that's me jumping around here. And it's all about the innovation that they're doing at the rehab hospital. And I thought this was really interesting. And again, I've just got a static image here, but again, it's all kinds of devices, usability, how can we make things more usable, how can we support people with different needs. And it's very exciting to see kind of the rehab hospitals entering into this as well. So that's in Ontario, out of the University of Toronto. The other one here was the OCAD, which I thought was pretty interesting, the University on Inclusive Design, and they actually do have a master's in inclusive design as well. And I've listed here a free course on web accessibility that they had. What was really interesting to me was this article, and again, I'm just going to go quickly, I won't jump into it, but it talks about you know, the more accessible it becomes, that it actually improves everyone's standard of living when you can make the world more accessible, and those people can earn a living in ways that, you know, they don't have to go to extraordinary measures to be able to enter the workforce or to do the job. And so I think that's a real shift as well in mindset.
What do you think the relationship is between the term accessibility and the idea of usability? Do you think it's the same, or are there differences?
You know, I've been kind of thinking through this, because I've seen there's a really good article on usability and defining it as kind of equal parts accessibility, universal design, and I would say universal design for learning. And it's kind of these combinations. So I'm still kind of working through the term usability, and perhaps for usability, I guess it means it's for everyone, where sometimes accessibility is for we associate that with disability. I don't know, what would you be your thoughts, because that's where I'm still kind of struggling with. Is it one and the same? I don't think it is, but I think it's a combination of terms.
I would kind of equate it to the ideas of like mainstreaming versus inclusion. Mm-hmm. So moving our thinking more towards, you know, the universal design of our environments, so that everyone can participate, rather than you know, looking at what we have and then trying to adapt it in some way. And of course, there are always going to be some limitations out at the edges where we may need to make, you know, specific changes in order to create appropriate access. But I think we can do, you know, a much better job of you know, applying universal design principles and applying, you know, other ideas, so that as we move forward with whatever we're doing, whether it's in education or employment or whatever, that the environments and the resources that we create are more broadly accessible for everyone. And so I think that's what world usability is getting towards,
right.
At least from my perspective.
Yeah.
I would like to, oh, you go ahead. Yeah, let me know when you're done, Kendra, because I want to share something.
Yeah, very quickly. So again, one of the things I think was interesting this year that we had was an Imagination Catalyst, and it was really all around inclusion. So these are just some of the accessibility innovation showcase that they did, and some of the many companies that are making products that around accessibility. And so I think when we talk about the usability, I think there's that shift coming, and it's almost like we've talked about. It used to be handicap, and then it became, we're slowly moving through these terms. So sometimes I think we see the terms accessibility or inclusion, and sometimes it's just catching up to what is the term that we're going to use, which I think is probably the usability reflects it a little bit better. But again, this is just, I'll stop sharing now, but these are some of the links to many of the companies that are really trying to explore how to make things more accessible for people and perhaps like a better environment for them.
Okay, I'm putting in I just posted a link to a website which is related to a project I've been working with for the last couple of years called All Access in the Libraries. And I think that this does relate to this idea of world usability, because libraries are places that exist around the world and basically, for the most part, are public. I mean, of course, we do have private libraries, we have school libraries, but our broad library system is really one that is open to the public. And one of the things that we did within this project was to look at the library as an environment and to say, okay, within the library, how can we bring in technology supports so that we can reduce the barriers that technology pose for individuals with disabilities and differing needs. And so we developed a model that we call the Assistive Technology Exploration Station. And I'm not exactly sure how to work the share screen function of this particular of the Hangout, but I'll tell you a little bit about the Exploration Station. It was designed to help people to explore the accessibility features that are available in the operating systems of PCs, of personal computers, or of iOS-based machines, and we're using an iPad. So with the idea that rather than having to always look for very complex technology or add-on technology, that people, first of all, may not even know that these accessibility features exist within the operating systems of computers that they already have or they can get access to. And then within that, we also built in a couple of things that provided an introduction for individuals to know that it is possible to operate an iPad with a switch. It is possible to have information accessible through when we bring it into a digital format. But we also tried to think about how we can put this together so that it can be sustained by the libraries. And that becomes one of the issues, when we're looking at inclusion, accessibility, usability, is the tools need to not only be ubiquitous, available everywhere, but they need to be relatively easy to use and sustain, or we can, we can experience things like technology abandonment, because maybe the people that first put it in place, they knew how to use it, but then they moved on or they moved to a different job, and then there's nobody there to support it. So trying to be sure that the tools that we're thinking about using are as usable or as ubiquitously usable as possible. And so it's been an exciting project, and we're at the point where where the grant part of that project is finishing, but the libraries have all been trained and they have the resources to be able to sustain that model, and I am hoping that will happen. I don't know if other people are experiencing any work that they do together with libraries or with other institutions that might help to bring usability, or to support broader usability within their communities. Anyone?
My connection's starting to lag. I didn't want to talk over anyone, but I think that the partnership that you've developed with the library makes a lot of sense, particularly from an instructional technology standpoint. Um, my in my experience, I used to have an office within the library at a college in Kentucky, and as the instructional technology coordinator, I dealt a lot with setting up and providing support for a variety of assistive technologies for students who were blind or deaf or had other kinds of learning needs. And so I learned how to use screen readers, JAWS, and whatnot through that position. And so I thought it was interesting that the library was the place that housed that kind of support. And that's what made me think of when I saw your picture of the exploration station.
Yeah, libraries, it really makes a tremendous amount of sense to partner and to work with libraries. And one of the things that we found with this project is we partner with two public libraries, two very large public libraries in our state, Providence Public Library and Cranston Public Library, because it was basically a pilot project. However, we've done presentations, and we did one presentation to school librarians across the state, and we had not really predicted that there would be such an interest in having this model of an assistive technology exploration station within school libraries as well. And when they came to the session, they said, "Wow, I'd really love to have this in my school library so that I would have a way to include the students who are coming into the library and have them participate, and for us to also be able to transfer information." That's another thing that we have at this exploration station, is a very fast digital scanner with a screen reading program. So for libraries, I mean, a lot of their information is available in hard copy print. So if you have a book, you can bring it to the exploration station and have it almost immediately transferred into digital form so that then it can be accessible through a screen reader or through the accessibility features of one of the computer systems. So it provides that flexibility in a timely way, which is sometimes one of the issues with assistive technology, is getting it, not only figuring out what one needs, but also obtaining it in a timely manner so that it can really make a difference for the situation you need it in. And, I know that we've experienced that, over and over here at Tech Access.
It's interesting that you talked about the library. I'm sorry, I don't know if I think you were lagging there. Just interesting you were talking about the library. I was a teacher librarian for many years, and I think one of the things you can do is model for other teachers and bring this technology in. So back in 2004, all the students had access to Kurzweil 3000. We had Read Please. We had a program called WordQ, SpeakQ, so kids could, have word prediction. And again, we had a really high ELL population, and we actually had a lot of French immersion students as well. And then we had about 100 countries represented in the school. And then we were also a hub for some higher needs special education students. And so the library really became that center where teachers could see it in action and get the support. And I think sometimes the role of the library media specialist, whatever we want to call them now, is really important because they can model that. And so many people come through, whether it's a school library or a public library, and it really becomes this place that shows in action all that accessibility and how we can support all kinds of learners. And of course, as we all know, as soon as we provide that sort of support for the students who perhaps have it in a report somewhere, we also know many other people also benefit from it as well, as we've talked about. And I think that's what really becomes clear, that all the students in some way use the technology in different ways to support their learning.
It's been interesting in working with some of the young graduates of the library program. We have a library university program here in Rhode Island, and a number of them have worked as volunteers for this particular project, and they are information specialists, information gurus. And when we're talking about, usability across the world, that's the internet is the primary information source. So it just makes such sense to reach out to your information, your library media specialists, when you're looking to expand usability, because they have access to knowledge and information that you may not have. And it really has been very exciting for me to learn more about what resources they have and to link with them. And I know the ALA, the American Library Association, has been looking at this whole idea of accessibility and making environments more accessible to everyone, which is wonderful. And people could find more resources about libraries there.
It reminds me of the Universal Design for Learning principle about providing opportunities for multiple modes of presentation. And as a librarian in the library, it's a resource curation of multiple modes of representation, whether it's in visuals, print, or digital, or images, or video, or auditory, being a resource for what kinds of information can we provide through podcasting, through other ways of listening, and then the hands-on, the movement to provide maker spaces and exploration stations like what you have described, to get people the materials to manipulate with their hands and to do and learn through that way. So it reminds me of how UDL connects into that.
That's a very good point, Susie. And we can talk all we want, but the best way to really experience it is to physically go in and try it out. And that's one of the reasons that the Exploration Station has been such an exciting model to work with. So we're hoping to do more with that. It's part of a larger project to help libraries here to kind of reframe the services and their outreach to the community to be places where people can come and learn, have access to learning, and also have access to employment information and preparation. So it's part of a larger project, but it's an exciting part. So that's about all I have to say on that one.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you all wanted?
I think for now I'm good. I'm going to be part of the conversation a little later in the day, and I think I'll try to connect. I had been in contact with my friend Judy McKenzie. She had some difficulty linking in, but maybe we can figure it out in the 3 hours we have in between now and then.
So we should invite. I'm not muted anymore, am I?
No, now you're okay.
Okay, we should invite people to tune in at 2 o'clock Central Time, and also 7 o'clock tonight Central Time if they want to continue the conversation. Something that was said by Susie earlier, the maker movement is big in the world of usability, and so is wearable technology. I just got back from a teacher ed division conference where we did a presentation on wearable technology, so maybe we could continue those conversations at one of those 2 additional times today that were scheduled. So coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon, it will be hosted by Lawrence Walker from Australia, and tonight will be hosted by our past president, Christine Southard, at 7 o'clock, and I hope to bring my class members in on the one that we're doing later on tonight.
Great idea. Okay, well,
So,
thank you so much, and thank you, Susie, for hosting this session.
signing off.